Diolch yn fawr i Ffotograffiaeth am fy wahodd i fod yn rhan o'r Gwyl Bwyd ar-lein. Thank you so much to St Fagans for the invitation to take part in the online food festival. My name is Manon and I'm a food photographer and stylist, and I work with a wide range of businesses to create marketing and advertising content. I set up my business about 3 years ago, and my work sees me travel to location and work with chefs and restaurants, but also I work in my studio using Studio Flash, where I'm sent products to work on remotely. I set up my business about 3 years ago after studying fashion and advertising photography at Newport Uni. I quickly realised that fashion wasn't really for me. So I luckily at the same time got into food photography, mainly through my interest in cooking and ingredients and taste. And luckily at that time I found a job as a photo retoucher in a food photography studio with Hugh Jones, who's a photographer in Newport, and also I wanted to stay in Wales. And luckily I realised there was a niche in food photography. The styling is a really important part of my work because it enables me to create images that fit the character, the style, the brand of a business or a company that I'm working with. The images need to match all of this, the packaging, the website, the interiors of a restaurant, for example, for it all to work and be cohesive. I style my work with different props, sets, compositions and lighting, and you can achieve so many looks with different colours, tones, shadows. I'm always on the hunt for different props, plates, backgrounds, fabrics to use as part of the styling, and it's this wide array that enables me to create different looks to match the brand's identity. Retouching is such an important aspect of my work, and it's actually the most time-consuming part of the project, a lot more time-consuming than the day photographing. Everything needs to be zoomed in to 100% and all imperfections removed. To create that really clean and professional look, it's integral to being a professional product photographer. A really important part of the job is making sure that the retouch isn't going to be too strenuous later on. So this means making sure that the food looks as fresh as possible, no wilted leaves, no crumbs out of place, no smears or fingerprints on the plate, because they're all going to show up under the camera's lens. So the more glasses I polish, the more dust I get rid of. That will make the retouch quicker afterwards. So it's all about attention to detail. I really love this part of the work, just sitting down, putting Radio 4 on and getting lost in the retouching. I realise there is controversy with retouching, and for all the commercial work I do keep it true to form. It is literally just to clean up the image. But when it comes to my own personal work or more editorial sets of images, you can have fun bending the truth and creating optical illusions, and there's a lot you can do. I've also photographed 2 cookbooks with Sarah Philpott and Sidearm Books, the publishers. They're both available online. It's been a complete joy to be part of Sarah's project. The infinite creative freedom I had with styling each set and just being part of such a big project is fantastic as a creative. It's really lovely to be asked to take part in the food festival. I must have been about 10 the first time I went to St Fagans, and there was an exhibition on, a medieval exhibition, and when I got home I just pestered my mum to let me cook bacon outside on the fire and find sheepskin to make a cape out of, and I just wanted to pretend to be a Celt. So let's talk through some techniques that you can use at home to create really effective photos of your food just using mobile phone and what you have available to you in the house. So, mobile phone photography workshop using natural light and specialising in food. Here I've got my table, which we're going to be using as our main setup, and I've moved it over to the window because this is our main light source. Natural light is an incredible tool, and using a mobile phone to take food photos, there's no reason why you can't take a great photo using a mobile phone. They behave so well with natural light. The only time I would say mobile phone food photography isn't good is when the light's bad, really dim, and under electric light bulb, because the cameras just aren't designed to deal with those levels of light. But we've got natural light, it's an amazing tool, we can bounce it right back in and create some beautiful photos. So we're going to start off by doing a flat lay, so shot from above, like a bird's eye view type shot. So this is going to be the main setup. I've got an array of fabrics here. Let's pick one to dress the set with. This pale blue. Today we're going to be photographing a Greek salad, so I want to go for something quite fresh and summery and maybe a bit Mediterranean. Some of my favourite bits of fabric at the moment. These are just John Lewis in the haberdashery section, and you can just go and buy it by the metre. And then we've got a few plates here to choose from. Shout out to Manon Ceramics. So for the Greek salad, I think I'm actually going to go for this kind of shallow bowl. You can just use whatever you've got available in the house, perhaps tablecloths or pashmina scarves. This is a tea towel, for example, and you can just see what a difference it makes when you change the background. So that's one of the main aspects I'd focus on. Main background colour, the centre of the image, what plate that's going to be that houses the food, and then you can think about little props that you can introduce. So how about a little ramekin? You could put some dressing in one, some salt and pepper in the other. It's just really setting the scene, building that up. How about some cutlery, a salad server? And then other things that you might have in the house, like table runners, placemat settings. And you can build in like some design and some different shapes and lines, layering up. You can see these are all the same tone and they work with the plate. So we've got the background set up, and I'd recommend doing this before the food's ready, because you want the food to be as fresh as possible before it goes in front of the camera, because you don't want it to wilt, and things like dressings and oils, you want them to be fresh and visible. So because we're doing mobile phone photography workshop, let me talk you through what I would do. So to get the grid up, I'm using an iPhone, but it'll be available on any mobile phone. So we'll go into the settings, and you can see the grid there, and just click it on. And then going into the camera, you can start to see how it's looking. It's looking really nice. We've got those lines lining up, and that's a really valuable tool, especially if you're kind of into Instagram and social media and you're thinking about a grid, and how everything's going to balance when it all comes together in a thumbnail gallery. So we're using the light now for window, but if you can get outside and do this, that's great, because the light's only going to get better and better. And the final thing to think about before you bring the food in is reflecting the light back in. So the best tool for this is a reflector. You see it? Really cheap online, and you take the light from the main light source and just bounce it back in. And then I get pegs from like hardware shops, and these are useful for all kinds of things, like tightening tablecloths in the wind, pegging things to backgrounds, but for now I'm going to use it to stand that up, and you can really see that light being bounced back in. And on a lot of these you get a gold one on the other side, and that creates a lot warmer glow, and you can take that right in, just as long as it's not going to be in the shot, but you can get that pretty close, and that's going to have a really big impact. And if you don't have a reflector, just find the biggest piece of whiteboard, and it won't be as shiny, but that will bounce a lot of light back in. The other thing you want to ask yourself is, do you want to go light or do you want to go dark? Because this is a very summery and bright setup, I want to bounce light back in. But the other thing you could do is get black card. and whatever you hold that next to, it'll absorb light and it'll intensify the shadows. So imagine this was like a black fabric setup with like a bit of coffee cake on it and a cup of tea. That blackboard will really emphasise the shadows. Can't stop thinking about cake now. So I wanted to do a proper traditional Greek salad because I would love to be in Greece right now. So the cheese is on, the traditional dried oregano, and I've been a bit more pedantic about this than you could be. Like, I know exactly what it's like to have your family shouting at you to like take the photos, we can eat the food. But as I said earlier, we've got a little ramekin there, and so I brought some of the salt in to use as props. So that's there. Get the reflector in, and I've got my dressing, which I'll pour on very last minute so it's as fresh as it can be when everything else is in place. That's just lemon, olive oil, mustard. When did this become a cooking video? Go, get the picture. Yeah, that looks great. Yeah, I'm really pleased with this. Amazing. We've got quite a lot of creases, but you can iron that if you really want. I think there's a bit of charm to it. And then I would just take a mixture of far away, so you get the whole scene in, and then close up. Always get some close-ups. So we've got excellent light, making use of the bountiful natural light. We've got a lovely styled plate of food, perfect props, angles all thought about, and you've got the tools that you need to get a balanced shot with the mobile phone. So the other setup is side on if you're not going to be shooting from above. And there's just a few things that you can add on to what we've just been through. All the basic things are still there, setting up the space before you shoot, getting your reflector to bounce your light back in. But if we're shooting side on, we need to think about more clutter being in view. Naturally, in a living space, there will just be everyday household objects. And so if you just plan ahead a bit and think about your background being clear and perhaps introducing a board. I use a lot of mount board from stationery shops, and that's something you could introduce if you wanted to spend a bit more time over the image. Perhaps lean it up against a chair or a box. I realise this is an unnatural environment because it's the studio and not a living space such as the kitchen, but perhaps this could be the dining table, and you could lean this up against the chair next to the dining table, and that will provide you a really clear, clean space to put your subject in. Here's my setup, and I just want to get rid of this fine line a bit, so you can just ruche up the fabric a bit and get the plate in. And then the same thing applies here with using the grid to line it up against the background. So we've got matching that there. Just making sure the plate is kind of straight in the shot. And then you can do your close-ups. Do whatever angle you want here. But you can see the effectiveness of using the plain board as the background. But just remembering to keep those lines balanced, like there, along here. This grid kind of works in the rule of thirds because you've got 1, 2, 3 boxes to line up. So if you get the majority of the subject matter in the 2 boxes, then you're going to get a nice even shot, and using that clear space as the top or the third segment of the image. And I realise there won't always be good light. In the winter it gets darker a lot earlier. By the time we eat dinner it might be dark. So the main thing I would avoid is just don't use the flash of your mobile phone because it's just not going to look good. If you have to use electric light, find a white light bulb, perhaps a white LED bulb. You can get some really good continuous light bulbs that are kind of traditionally used for filming. but they can kind of replicate natural light in quite a good way. You can find these online. They're not too expensive. Try different things out. Don't be afraid to try anything. Just avoid like tungsten, really orange lights, and really low lighting. It's just not going to give good results on a mobile phone. So think about getting some white light bulb, but ultimately, where and when you can, just use natural light and you'll be onto a winner. So thank you so much for watching my tutorial, and I really hope it's been useful. Diolch yn fawr.